Hey, beautiful people, it's your girl Shonna Etienne with the Virtual Book Club. I am here with the book that we are continuing in, which is Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. I'm waiting for you guys to come on. When you come on, just kindly say hello, let me know that you are here, and let me know where you are checking in from. So I am streaming to you guys from New Jersey, an awesome state. And today we're going to continue talking about our mothers with their sons, but from a different perspective. I mean, some of the things that Dr. Kunjufu wrote up in his book, I myself didn't even, I wasn't even thinking, I wasn't fully aware that I myself were doing some of the things that the mothers in this book that he speaks about were doing. So I had to sit back and really ask myself and have conversations with my son to see what his feedback was. So this is going to be a really good night. This is going to be a really good night because this is not a kick your mama's back in night. So I don't want all the ladies to feel like all the scholars out there, the black scholars, are kicking their backs in, because he's not. And if you read the book, if you get the book and read it, you will see that he is very supportive of black mothers. We just need to be able to hear and understand the truth for what it is. As the saying goes, eat the meat and throw out the bones. So as you come on, just make sure you let me know that you are here, where you are checking in at, and be sure to share the video. For everyone who is new to this video, make sure you like and follow the page. I would greatly appreciate that. So I see Rolando. Hey, Rolando. Abdul, how you doing, Abdul? Charles, Benisa, how you doing, sister? Jade, how you doing? We have Daphne, how you doing? And everyone is coming in, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. Let's go ahead and really start to jump in. As everyone else come in, just say hello to me, and if I'm not in my groove, I will acknowledge your presence. And if I do not, please do not get offended. Sometimes I just get so focused in this groove, and I want to keep the night going, just in case there are people that's going to support the president. In his state of the whatever address. Yeah, state of the whatever address. There go my godson checking in. What's up, Malik? Thank you for checking in to support your Nana. I appreciate that. So let me go ahead and get started. And yeah, listen to the story. He starts off with a story. He says, while I waited outside for my 9-year-old son, I couldn't help but to overhear a conversation an African American woman was having with her son. He looked to be about 4 or 5 years old. Basically, she was explaining to him how to use the restroom. She seemed to be well educated and very accomplished. My son came out, but before I could say goodbyes, she asked if I would mind going in to see what was holding up her son. All he had to do was urinate, she said. No problem, I said, and I told my son to stand next to her. That is so cute. I went into the restroom and looked for the boy by the long row of urinals. He was nowhere to be found. I was just about to leave when I saw him coming out of one of the enclosed stalls. I asked him why was he using the toilet when he could have used the urinal. He said, we don't have one of those at home, and I don't know how to use it. Let me stop right there. Good night, Natalie. How are you? Hey, beautiful Sakia. How are you? Let me stop right there. When I read that, I stopped and I asked myself, did you ever teach your son how to use the urinal, Shonna? That is me. And I said, I don't think so. And so I went into my 13-year-old's room and I asked him, I said, Jace, when you go to the bathroom, do you use the urinal or the toilet? And he said, I use the urinal. And I said, did I show you how to use the urinal? And he looked at me with a big smirk on his face and was like, no. I said, how did you learn how to use the urinal, Jace? And he goes, I don't know. I learned how to use it when I was 4 or 5 years old. It was like common sense to me. I was like, really? He was like, yeah. So you sure your dad didn't show you? Because his father and I divorced at 2, but they remained visiting their father on as consistent basis as possible. But they have a relationship with their father, who is their best friend. But nonetheless, He said his father didn't show him. And I have to stop and pause when I read this in this book because I never showed him either. And these are just some of the things that some of us mothers don't even think about. I mean, we do the best that we can. When we have kids and we're left to raise them on our own, we have to do the best that we can. Just as long as we are consistent, persistent, and available, we have to do the best we can. But we have to be real about some things we are just not going to be able to teach them. We need to be honest and be real about that. And for me, when I read that, that was a very, very, very honest look at some of the things where I may have missed an opportunity, or I wasn't able to provide an opportunity to my son as he goes through this journey into manhood. So it's not an offense. It's not an attack toward the women. It's just saying that some of the things we just don't know. And what I love about Dr. Kunjufu is that he came out and he asked the mother if he could take some time just to show her son about the urinal. And I'm glad that she allowed him to do it because he didn't have a father in his life. And I wish we had more responsible, trustworthy men that would be willing to do that, who has enough time to stop and be able to mentor our young boys who are without a father or a consistent male presence in their life. So for me, that was very powerful. He goes on to say, for the last 2 decades, I have devoted my life to the empowerment of African American people. Right on, brother. With a strong concentration on the development of the African American male. I raised many questions, analyzed issues, and look for trends that both positively and negatively affect the development of the African American male children. This incident at the park sent out a red alert to me. What other rites of passage and learning experiences are African American boys missing under the guidance of African American women who are doing their level best? So you have to ask yourself, just like I had to ask myself, what other areas, what other rites of passages are our sons missing, ladies, when we are not able to provide it for them? And we have to be real about this. I know, for one thing, I was so proud of my daughter, and my son is not there yet, but I'm about to start making sure he's taught these things. But I was so proud of my daughter when she started to drive her car. And I know I'm talking about a son, but it's only because I became conscious with my daughter that I know for a fact I must do it for my son. When she started driving her car and she drove to school when she was in high school, she had got a flat tire. And she had called me because she started to panic and wanted to know what she should do. And so then I said to her, do you know how to change a tire? And so she was like, yeah, I do. Dad taught me. And I said, so get to doing it. What are the rules? And she said, lefty, lefty loosey, righty tighty. And she knew how to take off the tire. I said, change the tire, call me back when you're done. And if it's not done, I'm going to leave. You're just going to have to stay put. It takes me 40 minutes to get to you. So she was like, okay, she did it. She changed the tire all by herself and got home. That's when it became apparent that little things like that I didn't automatically think of to do with my kids. Not that I wouldn't have showed my daughter or my son, because I know how to change a tire, but not that I would not have showed them how to do it. It was just something I didn't think of. So we have to be very mindful that some opportunities that a male can show our sons, we're missing. Not because we want to miss as women, but because our minds don't necessarily think that way. And I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but let's talk about the macro level. Let's talk about the majority. It is true. It is true for the majority. And so I had to sit back and I had to really consider that. And I made a mental note to myself to make sure for a fact that my son is equipped, that he's not stranded out there, dependent on a woman, dependent on me, or helpless. Let's go on. I began to reflect and juxtapose what I saw today. There was the middle-income African-American female attorney whose son did not know how to use the urinal. And there was the African-American male college freshman, the product of a crackhead mama and an absent father who has successfully successfully completed a 6-week intensive science camp. It became obvious that a child's final destination in life transcends race, class, and gender. So what is he saying there? What is he saying there? Oftentimes, we automatically go to the negative in the mindset. Oh, if somebody's mama's a crackhead and their father is not there, they're going to grow up to be a criminal. Or we may say, oh, this lady, this woman can't teach her son how to be a respectable man. That's not what he is saying whatsoever. What he is saying is, with the right leadership, with the right guidance, with the right consistency, with the right structure, rules, and everything else, we can raise our boys to be productive men. But we have to do this relentlessly. And the truth is, not every woman focuses on their child day in and day out. Because as a single woman with children, you have to work, you have to pay the bills, you have to make sure your kids are cared for, you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to food shop, you have to do laundry, you have to make sure your car has proper maintenance so it doesn't break down. There are a lot of things that a single woman has to manage on her own. And sometimes the consistent care of the children, both male children and female children, fall to the wayside. And that's just the reality. And that's why it's imperative for boys, for men, let me not say boys because we know the boys ain't going to be there for their kids, for the men to be there for their children on a consistent basis, ideally in the home. But if in the home is not possible, check this out. If in the home is not possible, you must, through hell and high water, be there for your son no matter what. And somebody posed a question yesterday, or not a question, but a statement, where he said in the chat that there are some women that would keep their children from the men. You are absolutely right. And those evil, bitter, nasty, lonely women need to stop. Right? But I feel, and maybe I'm being a little bit unfair. You guys can, let me know if I'm being unfair. But I also feel that even through her nastiness, the commitment to your child shouldn't stop. You should still try no matter what. You don't get to choose not to be a parent. We, as single women that have to raise our children, we don't get to choose not to be a parent. We have to do it no matter what. And even with that nasty mom, you still have to go above and beyond. You still have to use all avenues possible to see your child until you exhausted everything. If you exhausted everything, then I say that there's not much you can do until that child becomes of age. But still try. I don't care if you just send a card. We can't sit down here and say, how am I supposed to know whether or not she's going to give him the card? You don't know that. You don't know that she is going to give it to him, and you don't know that she's not going to give it to him. What I'm saying that you have to make your good faith efforts no matter what. And you have to be consistent and diligent in your efforts. Even when the deck is stacked against you, you still have to do it. And don't ever mistake that single women with children do not have to go up against idiotic fathers as well. We still have to go up against idiotic fathers as well. But the point is, regardless of your position with that woman or with that man, those children did not ask to be here. And I don't know, I'm not a man, so I can't tell you guys how you feel. But I know I told my brother, if you ever had a child, and if she ever tried to keep the child away from you, we are going to fight this through hell and high water, even if it means going through the court system, which I know we dread, but still. We got to do everything in our power. And that requires you to keep receipts. That requires you to document everything. That requires you to send everything in writing. I remember counseling a man who went through a divorce and he had a bitter ex-wife. And you know something? We fought her tooth and nail, and I gave him every resource and every tool and strategy he can use. And he used it. And to this day, he still maintains visitation with his children. He had to fight for it, but he got it. So I'm not somebody who is easy to say, you know what, you're right, just pray and don't do anything about it. You got to fight. And you have to be consistent with your fight. Let's move on. One of the favorite lines that teachers give parents is, your son has the potential, but he is not working to his capacity. How many of us have heard that? Your child has the potential, but he is not working to his capacity. If the teacher had told the parent that her son was stupid, we would have World War III. But the teacher has softened the blow, and the parent is feeling pretty good. When the teacher says the child is not working to his fullest capacity, the burden of check this out, guys. The burden of responsibility is now exclusively on him. It becomes on the child. You are not working to your greatest capacity. So now the accountability and the responsibility is off of the teacher and on to the child. We have to be able to listen and pay attention to these Jedi mind tricks. Because people know how to be witty with their words. They know how to mash them suckers up and put it back on you, especially the passive aggressive people. But you got to be able to read in between all that BS and be able to shut it down at its root. At its root. This is misplaced responsibility. The failure of the child also lies with the teacher and the parent. So we can't just say the child is not working up to the most of his capacity. Are you teaching to the best of your capacity? Are you trying every strategy in the world to make sure you have exhausted the possibilities on your end? And the parent has to do the same thing as well. But here's what the doctor suggests, because I know a lot of people have emailed me and inboxed me about how should they go about fighting the school when it comes to their kids, because many people are really going through this. But here's what he said. Here's are some of the things that you must ask your child's teacher at some point during the school year. Where was my child at the beginning of the school year in each subject area? What skills or concepts has he or she acquired during this reporting period? Don't just tell me about the negative. I want to see everything. I want to assess everything. What skills has he or she acquired since the beginning of the period? That's very important. Where is he or she in relation to your expectations at this point? Where is my child in relationship to your expectations as a teacher? What criteria did you use to establish your expectations for my child? How did you make your assessment of my child? What areas of strength have you identified in my child? What weaknesses have you identified in my child? What are your plans for addressing these weaknesses? How can I assist you in addressing the weaknesses? And is my child receiving any resource services outside of the classroom? If so, please specify. We got to be strategic when dealing with these teachers. Because whether people like to hear this or not, the school system is turning more kids into prisoners than ever before in life. So we have to be very cognizant of this. And you got to ask the teacher these questions. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to warn you guys, because y'all know I'm the queen of emails. I play no game. And the queen of meetings. Don't sit down and want to meet with me when the things has gotten out of control. Call me at the very beginning so we as a team can nip this in the behind. And I watched this. I got all the emails. I never deleted one of my emails. I got rid of them. When I write emails to these teachers, they don't like to respond. They don't like to respond. Or they send you one little blurb. That's not what I asked you. And when that happens, I let the principal know in an email and CC the superintendent of schools that this teacher has X amount of time to respond to my email, or I'm coming up to the school and I am not coming alone. I make them known, because they try to brush things over. You're not going to just try to shift the responsibility onto us and you're not doing your job as a teacher. Because I want to see how you answer these questions, and I want it in writing, because if it wasn't in writing, it didn't happen. I'm very clear about these things with these teachers. I play no games. I believe the school system is becoming a larger drug dealer than the mafia. Before Ritalin is given or any medication is given to your child, a change in instructional pedagogy and curriculum should be implemented. So what is pedagogy? That's teaching. That's teaching. So a change in the teaching and the curriculum has to be implemented. I also encourage parents to visit the classroom, observe their child, and make their own honest and informed assessment. Parents may have to identify an alternative public or private school which may present financial and or residential hardship. I want to say this, I want to be very honest about this, because there is a lot of controversy when it comes to medication. And a lot of people do not want to give their children medication, and that's rightfully so. And I got to be smart with how I'm about to address this. And I have to be responsible, being that I took an oath and I am a licensed individual. So I want to be very clear about this. You make sure you do your assessment. When I have parents contact me and they come to our organization for an assessment, I let them know all the time, before you allow the school to do it, do everything yourself. And I give them all the steps, including going to the classroom unannounced and watching your child. That's very important. And let me tell you why I know that's very important. I went to my son's school when he was in elementary school, and they did not know I was coming. And I just so happened to pop up. And he was in, I'm going to say, first grade. Can I tell you, I witnessed with my own eyes. My son, I mean, he has now gotten a lot of it under control. I'm still watching him like a hawk. But my 13-year-old, when he was in first grade, I witnessed him with my own eyes tearing stuff off the wall, kicking chairs across the classroom, crawling under desks to get away from the teachers. I watched this with my own eyes, and I sit there and I wanted to see what the teacher was doing, and she did not know I was there. And she rightfully so got her classroom up. She got them all to one area, and then they started to file out into the hallway. And then that's when they realized that I was there. That's when they realized I was there. And you can make a bold request to observe your child's classroom. You absolutely can. And when I did that, I was horrified. I was shocked. And I started to pay attention to my son's behavior. I have witnessed my son in restaurants, under tables. He couldn't keep still for the life of him. He would get his food and then go under the table to eat in restaurants. Tell me how embarrassing that is. Very embarrassing. And I started to get him evaluated by the Autistic Center. I started to get him evaluated by Black doctors. They were all Black psychiatrists with the exception of one woman. And I seen maybe 3 or 4 different psychiatrists and psychologists, and everybody's report came back the same from all their test results and all their assessments. They all came back the same. So I'm going to say this to you guys. You guys have to be mindful about what it is you're hoping to accomplish with your child educationally. And I am not afraid to admit it to you guys openly. For a few years, I did try medication with my child. And the way he was on medication, and I didn't try any stimulants. I don't understand the whole concept of stimulants, why people would do that. If your child has like neurological impairments that causes him to not be able to sit still, why would you give your child a stimulant? But I am skilled and I understand medication. So I worked hand in hand with his psychiatrist, who was a man of color, and I worked hand in hand with him, and we got the right medication for my son. And I kept him on it for a couple of years. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. The way he was on it and off it was 2 completely different things. And if I did not do that, I would have failed him, because my son is a genius. A genius. I already told you guys how smart he is, what grade he is. He's the youngest and one of the smartest in his school. I already knew his potential, but he was losing out because he wasn't able to control himself. He just really wasn't. And I always talked to my son, and he would tell me he knew the difference when he was off of medication. And he would come home and he would say, I think I didn't take my medication today. Oh, you didn't take it? And I would go right into the kitchen and I would see he left it on the counter. And I would say, how did you know? He said, I couldn't control myself. I had to ask to leave the classroom. And he had resources in place that they allowed for that to happen. And when I say you guys got to be educated on your own. I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do. I'm saying do all your research for yourself before you make any decision. My child right now is not on any medication. He is off and he is controlling himself. And that could be a lot of factors that played into it. So if you don't understand medication and if you don't understand how it works, I can see how somebody would immediately get turned off for it. I tried everything. I tried changing his diet, removing colors from his food with dyes, taking out sugar, adding certain vegetables, making sure that the vitamins was balanced. I tried everything before I ever went to medication. But by the time he got to 5th grade unmedicated, it was harming him. It was harming him. He was just doing a bad job. And at 10 years old, or he was actually 9 in fifth grade because he was skipped. But at 9 years old in fifth grade, being under the table in restaurants, being under the table in classrooms, running around the church to where all the teachers in the church said he can't come back if he can't keep still. That is a lot of stress on a parent. So I just want you guys to be smart about what you do. And even if you only did it for a little bit until he learns how to control himself, depending on your child's impairment. My child's impairment is not the same for somebody else's. And just dishing out Ritalin for black boys is just ain't going to work it. It ain't going to make it. And that wasn't going to happen for my child. I went for a long time. I went all the way to fifth grade before I said I have to try something else. I've tried natural doctors. I tried every single thing. And nothing was working. Nothing was working. And it was either save my child's life or have him be put in an alternative school. And I chose to save his life. So I want you guys to be very aware of that. And now he's not on medication. He is doing extremely well. He is in one of New Jersey's top private schools. Extremely well. So you just have to be doing what's best for you. So we're about to wrap this up right now. For many parents, the problem is the lack of rules. For others, it is the ability to enforce them. If the consequences of breaking rules is kicking the child out of the house, check this out for all you people who like to threaten to kick your child out the house. If the consequences for breaking the rules is kicking your child out of the house, then you must be prepared to follow through. Children do not take to idle threats. And I witness a lot of mothers, particularly mothers, make a lot of idle threats. And I see them use the fathers at their convenience. Whenever they want to impose a rule or try to act like they're imposing a rule or getting a child to be a little bit scared, then they call on the father. When the father sets the rule and he leaves, the mother goes right behind his back and then allow the child to do the very thing she said he couldn't do anymore. So we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent. Our children are not our friends. They're not. And it's our job. It is our job to make sure we set our children up for success. So if you're going to make a threat, follow through with it and stay with it. If mothers allow their sons to stay with them irresponsibly, they may be physically alive, but they are mentally, emotionally, financially, and spiritually bankrupt and dead. If you allow your son to stay with you in an irresponsible manner, he doesn't cook, he doesn't clean, he doesn't help with the grocery, he doesn't provide you any financial compensation for being in the house, he sleeps all day, he has company in the house, having sex in your house. If you allow your child to do that, you better be prepared for the consequences. Be prepared for all the consequences that will bring. You have to set the standard for your children and follow through with them. In many cities, mothers who have buried their sons, check this out, our sons that are dying to violence, who have buried their sons due to wanton violence, have organized themselves into various groups. We all heard of groups, Mothers Against Gangs, Mothers Against Violence, Mothers Against Crimes. Most had not considered getting together until a tragedy happened to their sons. I commend them from coming together to try to prevent another child from being a victim. I wish we can organize mothers before their sons' lives are snuffed out at an early age. Not only do we need these groups, but we need Mothers Against Ritalin, Mothers Against a disproportionate number of black boys failing kindergarten, Mothers Against Special Education, Mothers Against Teachers that give our boys low expectations, and Mothers Against Gangster Rap. That's all I have for this chapter. We have completed chapter 5, and that was something. We had to slow it down. We had to take it to a slower level because there's a lot of stuff in here. And I wanted to share a little bit of my experience so you guys can know that I experienced life too. I don't want anyone to look at me like I'm above somebody else because I am not. But I'll tell you one thing. You have to fight. You have to fight for your boys. And I don't necessarily mean physically fight. I'm saying you have to counter the conspiracy to destroy your boys. But you also have to be honest and real with yourself. And not all of our boys are angels. Not all of them are perfect. And we have to be able to acknowledge when things are not going right and take immediate action to fix it. Even when it gets tiresome, even when the burden is heavy, even when we feel like we have no supports, we absolutely must fight for our children, because they are going to jail younger and younger and younger. And this system, this wicked, evil system, is trying our little kids, our minors, as adults. So be ever mindful that you have to do all in your power to save your son, no matter what. And part of that is being consistent. I love you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you guys all tomorrow with chapter 6. We're going to talk about female teachers and black male culture.